Think about the last conversation you walked away from thinking you understood what was said. Did you actually hear what they said? Or did you fill in some gaps based on what you expected? Most of us do this most of the time, and we don't know we're doing it. Today, I want to show you one sentence that catches those gaps and what happens to the conversation when you use it. Stick around. Across my career, one pattern keeps showing up. People skills shape long-term success. I've seen it in high-stakes technical work, leadership, business, and family life. This channel is about solving the people puzzle. There's a one-sentence move that makes you a better listener because it catches the gap between what you thought you heard and what was actually said. The sentence is, "Let me make sure I understand you. It sounds like you're saying," and then whatever you think they're saying. That's the whole technique. But the reason it works, and why most people skip it, is worth understanding. 3 things to cover: the problem the technique solves, what it actually does in the moment, and the professional situation where it matters the most. Technical people are trained to infer from data. You observe a system, build a model, make a prediction. It's a powerful skill. In conversation, it becomes a liability. For years, I was very good at observing people in a room, watching what was happening, building a mental model of what someone was feeling, what they meant, what they probably wanted, and I acted on that model without ever checking it. I was wrong more often than I knew. Usually the person would correct me, and I'd thank them and adjust. But the gaps I never caught, the ones where nobody said anything, those lived in the space between what they said and what I assumed they meant. The inference skill has a hard limit. You can observe behavior, but you can't observe what someone else is feeling or what they actually meant by what they said. Any model you build about their motivations is a guess, a reasonable guess maybe, shaped by everything you know about the person, but still a guess. And guesses compound. You make one unchecked assumption, you make a decision based on it, someone else builds on that decision. By the time anyone notices something's off, you're 4 steps removed from the original conversation. And tracing back to the source is painful. Checking your understanding isn't a sign of poor listening. It's the recognition that inference has limits and that the person you're listening to is the only reliable source for what they actually meant. This move does more than it sounds like. When you reflect back what someone said and you've got it right, something often happens that surprised me the first few times I did this. They keep going. Yes, and actually, and then they continue. Hearing their own words reflected back accurately gives them a launching pad to build on. The conversation goes somewhere it wouldn't have gone if you just nodded and moved on. But the moments where you get it wrong, where they say, "Not quite, what I actually meant was," those are more valuable. That's the thing you would have missed. You would have walked away operating on a wrong premise and made decisions from there. The research on this goes back to Carl Rogers, who developed client-centered therapy in the mid-20th century. He called this skill empathetic understanding, the effort and ability to understand what someone is telling you and reflect that back. Rogers built his entire method around this, and every listening framework that followed made this the core move. It's doing 2 things simultaneously: checking your model for errors and opening the conversation to go further. Neither of these happens if you just stay quiet. There's one professional situation where this matters more than any other: commitments. It would be good for someone to look at that. I might look into it. Someone should probably follow up. None of those are commitments, but in a fast-moving meeting, they can sound like one. The project lead walks out thinking there's an owner. The person who said, "I might look into it," moves on. 2 weeks later, nothing happened, and now you're figuring out whose fault it is. This is one of the most expensive recurring patterns in technical work. Not anyone lying or being careless, just the natural ambiguity of language and the fact that nobody stopped to check. The fix: it sounds like you're planning to take that on. Am I reading that right? And if so, how long do you think it'll take? 30 seconds in the meeting, weeks of potential rework and trust erosion avoided. You're just making sure you both leave the room with the same understanding. One sentence: "Let me make sure I understand you. It sounds like you're saying..." Not every conversation needs it. Most of the time, the stakes are low enough that a small gap doesn't matter. But for the conversations that actually count, commitments, decisions, moments where you're about to act on what someone told you. It's the difference between building on what they actually said and building on what you thought they said. The hard part isn't the sentence, it's noticing the moment you've just interpreted something. That's the introspective move the technique requires. Once you catch the moment, the sentence takes care of itself. If active listening is something you want to build, look for more of these in my quick tips playlist, and hit subscribe if you haven't. If you'd like to get this kind of thinking delivered to you, I have a newsletter called Thoughts from the Corner. Same focus, communication, productivity, and people skills for technical professionals. The sign-up link is in the description.